Oh yeah, here we go. It is Eric and Eric together again. Eric, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing great.
Good.
How are you?
I am good. I am thrilled to be here. Julian cannot be here. Obviously, I am not Julian, but I am thrilled to be here with Eric. And if you've never watched this is Serverless Office Hours, where we talk all things serverless. This is really weird. I told you when we were streaming that this is going to be a problem. Everything is over here to my left because I'm going to be sharing my screen in a minute. So I'm I'm going to be staring off to the side here. So that's what's going on. But we do have some people. Hey, everyone. Producer Jeff. First of all, call out to Jeff. Jeff, thank you very much for taking care of us. Producer Jeff takes really good care of us. Chawana, I can't read it. Sataniko first. Okay. Well, good. All right. So today is kind of an interesting show. First of all, Eric, you're only here with us for about a half hour, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
be here for the first part.
And then Eric, your following is with you. Eric is not hosting the Amplify streams. What's going on there, Eric?
For those of you have not, for those of longtime watchers of the AWS channel, I did have an Amplify show. It's a little bit on a hiatus right now, but if you have any Amplify questions, we can maybe take that too, or feel free to hit me up on socials at EricCH.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this is serverless, but Amplify is serverless. And so Eric is part of our team as well. We are part of the DevRel team here in North America, or actually globally. But today, we're going to be talking about, Eric, is probably one of your favorite topics because you are the master at Kiro, right? So we're going to be doing, one of the things that Kiro offers is this thing called the steering dock. And so we're going to look at what does it take, because here we are in Serverless Office Hours, what does it take to set up Kiro and use steering docks, and with Cursor its rules, and Windsurf its rules, so you can apply the same kind of knowledge to whatever coding agent you use. But today we're going to be using Kiro as the example. But how do you set it up to build serverless applications? And Eric, what are some things that you do? And as I get set up here, what are some things that you do to approach that?
To build serverless applications with Kiro?
When you're going to build serverless, what are some of the critical things that are for you?
Well, I love to pick what infrastructure as code tool that I'm going to use. I know you're a huge SAM fan. I'm a big CDK fan.
Not your fault. It's the way you were born. Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah.
So I definitely kind of take that approach when I'm trying to build my backend serverless apps. And then I love using Kiro, and then using Kiro with its great MCP support to use the AWS MCP servers out there that can then easily help me write my infrastructure as code. So that is one kind of tool that I use. And then going to steering docks. And by the way, can you hear me okay, Eric?
Yeah, I got you.
Going back to the steering docks is to really go in there and outline exactly what my common patterns are when I program. So for example, I love TypeScript. I write JavaScript and TypeScript everywhere, but I really prefer TypeScript. So I want to make sure that any code that's created with Kiro, that it uses TypeScript. Of course, creating the right linting rules, creating just the right environment for myself before I get started is what I do. And so then I don't memorize every CDK construct out there. Of course, with TypeScript and IntelliSense and Kiro being off of VS Code, I can easily kind of infer what I want, but it's really nice having Kiro kind of help me write some of that code while I'm going through it, especially some of that infrastructure as code. I'll initialize, of course, the CDK app myself. I'll do some of the basics started, but then when I need to deep dive into specific questions, I'll kind of vibe code it. Sometimes if it's a bigger project, I might use Spec, so we'll go back and forth through that too.
Okay.
And then like using CDK nag, like using some other tooling to make sure that the CDK code that I write is up to par, and using some of those best principles as well that we all follow and know, like the least privilege rules,
Right.
things like that.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So something you have to know about Eric and I, our names are spelled similar, but that's where basically the comparison ends. Eric's code works. Mine does not. So that's a pretty big difference between us. Eric's one of those developers who types and has a conversation with you and chats and takes a drink of soda, and then his code works. I'm the type that tries and tries and tries. It doesn't work, and I don't know why it doesn't work until it does work. And I still don't know why it doesn't, or why it's working. So this is kind of the difference how I do it. But this works for both of us. I do want to do a couple call outs. We have Alper codes. And Eric, you've got an off-topic question that I'm going to throw out to you. And real quick, I'm going to say hey to Daryl also. Daryl's a big serverless user and constantly talking about it. But quick question while I get set up here. Off topic, latest Node.js versions support TypeScript natively. When will Lambda support? Well, I guess we can't answer when Lambda supports it, but do you have any comments on the native support?
I love TypeScript. I am amazed that the latest versions of TypeScript, Node, support TypeScript, and that you can now, you don't have to have that extra step of basically taking your TypeScript and compiling it back down to JavaScript. With that said, I've been playing around with the latest versions of Node 23 and 24, and it's still not perfect. I still obviously, of course, when I'm using Lambdas, making sure that it's back into the JavaScript ESM version that it supports. So it's getting better. I wish I could answer that question too. I do not know. I don't think we can answer that question, but I see in the future that things will become much easier with TypeScript and Lambdas and things like that.
I love this call out. Schizophrenic web developer throws this out. Lambda supports LTS versions, which is correct. So I guess when version becomes LTS, then Lambda will support this, and that makes a lot of sense. That is the pattern that we follow. So good statement. Okay. So we're going to jump into this, and I'm going to show you. And Eric, as you were talking about how you kind of approach it, that's kind of I approach it the same way. So this is so we're gonna jump in. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll add that to the stage there. So this is how I start building serverless. And now in my job, I do a lot of proof of concepts. So I'm constantly building another application, another thing like that. And so I have some pretty set steering docs that I might use and things like that. But I want to kind of show how we do this from the beginning. So basically, this is where I start. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and make a directory. We'll call it SOH. What is today? 1104. Okay, there we go. And we'll CD into that. If I can spell. It's painful to watch me sometimes. And then let's go ahead and open Kiro for that. Okay, so here we are in Kiro. And now, first thing is, let's look at some of the MCP servers, because like Eric, I have some MCP servers that are very important to me. You can see here, I have the fetch MCP server. This is super helpful because it allows Kiro to do fetching and grab different information. I have the serverless MCP server, which helps a lot with serverless, with SAM, different things like that. Notice it didn't launch. I'll explain why in just a moment. I have the AWS Labs documentation. This is super helpful. And then the agent core. So these are the ones that I use. I may throw some others in, but these are some of the ones that I really enjoy and use on that. Now, why did this fail? Well, because I have it tied to a specific region and profile. So let's go ahead and get logged in here. So don't watch as I type this, but what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and log in using my system. There we go. So now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set a profile. So in my system, I use, this is a plugin in OMyZSH that allows me to do AWS profiles. I just tell it ASP demo, and this sets this sets everything to use for the demo profile. Why do I do that? Well, because when I was a contractor and worked for a bunch of different companies, I have been known to deploy the code to the wrong profile. because I had default profile. Like, oh no! So I had to tear that down. So, all right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and set my profile here, and I use a bunch of different ones. So we'll let that load up. Now that once that changes out here. Nope, let's try that again. Maybe I didn't hit the right one. Hold, please. There we go. Okay, so that's the profile I want, and then I can tell it to retry, and that loads up the proper. You can see that it will load in just a minute.
And
all right, so those are the MCP servers. What's that?
I'm gonna say a nice thing too is if you have an MCP server that it's not working, and you're not Eric Johnson who knows how to fix everything, at least an MCP server. There's it'll give you an option to like bring it to Kiro, and then you can have Kiro like try to figure out what the problem is.
That's right. Yeah. It can tell you exactly what's going on. The thing about this is in this particular configuration, it wants a profile and an authorization on that. So that's super helpful. Okay. So let's kind of get into the meat of the matter of building a steering dock. Now, if you're not familiar with the steering dock, and I've asked Eric to be here. Like he only gets to hang out with us for about 30 minutes, but I've asked Eric to be here because he is the expert, right? So, like I said, Eric, if I say something, you're that's not quite right, go ahead and jump in, right? I mean, you'll pay for it later. I'm going to be hurt, and we'll talk later tonight. But for now, I want to make sure we get the right information out there. So I'm going to kind of, I'm a serverless. That's what I do, and so I've applied Kiro to that. But Eric is the Kiro expert, so I really want to make sure we get the right information out there. But this is how I go about building a steering dock, because I want to build it. I have some very specific ways. So what I'm going to do, I like to have the.
Are you there, Eric? Did we lose you? Uh-oh. I do see his screen here. I do see the Vibe and Spec mode. Yes, so thank you. The other Eric is frozen. Hopefully he'll be back. It's the Eric with the C is frozen. So this sometimes happens. That's okay. Internet can be a little flaky. But in the meantime, let me see if I can actually get on here and maybe show some code, because I feel like I see some funny things in the chat. No DNS errors this time, as far as I can tell. But that's okay. These things happen. This is live, guys. Let me see if I can bring up one of my apps here. Let's see here. Maybe we can go over it. Let me close some windows. I think Eric might be back.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened there. Funny. No, DNS. I think this was just an Eric thing, as much as I'd like to blame other things. So let us. Yeah, my internet just on my laptop, so obviously still up. I'm actually sitting I'm in one of the AWS offices. So, all right. So let's share my screen again. Let's hope that we can make this work here. All right.
I had my demo already. I was about to jump in my demo.
Were you ready? Okay. Yeah. I bet Jeffrey was like, so well, that made me cough. All right. So let's try again now that I don't know where exactly I dropped, but hopefully, Daryl, let me know, is that big enough to read? Can you see it? Okay, good. All right. So my question here, or the way I approach this, is I have the conversation. Yeah, we're all back. I have the conversation with Kiro. I let Kiro build it. I don't go in and type it. However, one of the things with Kiro, when you're doing a steering dock, or it's not just Kiro, with any of them, they want to explain themselves. They're very verbose. So we'll handle that in a little bit. But let's just get started. Say, let's create a steering dock for building serverless. Now, I want to apologize to everybody. I have two fingers, one on each hand, and I'm still the worst fat finger on the planet. So this is going to happen, but let's see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some basic rules. Number one, I use AWS SAM for all IAC. Okay. I like SAM. That's what I use. I like to do that. Number 2. Now here's a big one. Eric, have you ever been setting up? You're using your agent. You say, okay, do this, and it starts building all those custom scripts for deployment.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're like, stop. I don't want custom scripts because SAM the ability to do all my deployment. I like for it to use the built-in ones. We've got some questions coming in. We have a question from Erie Edits where they ask you, what's the difference? Between SAM and SDK. Actually, it's CDK. Eric, do you want to give your take on what's the difference? So here's the difference. SAM is the right choice. That's the difference.
Yeah, they're just different ways. I can speak more to the CDK side. I don't use SAM much, but CDK is Cloud Development Kit. It's a way to build your apps. It supports many different languages. Most people just use TypeScript, and then you can structure your infrastructure as code that way. You have a way to launch it. You can have different stacks. You can kind of configure it per stack. You can use, of course, your own environmental variables and bring them in.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful, and it's like you're writing TypeScript as you build it. Maybe you should dive into SAM. SAM feels like it's less verbose than CDK. I seem very. Yep. It's like it. And of course, CDK and SAM compile down to the CloudFormation templates that you all know and love.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of help in the chats as well. SAM is more declarative, and it is. So I'll say this about SAM, and I think this is where a lot of people get hung up on. SAM is CloudFormation with some extra. Okay, so I've heard people go, well, do you use SAM or do you use CloudFormation? Well, SAM is CloudFormation. What SAM is it's CloudFormation with special resources called serverless resources. So a serverless function, a serverless state machine, a serverless database, those kinds of things. Eric, am I still here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, because it just disconnected again. So wow, I am really having some internet fun today. So this is obviously me. And what happens is when you deploy, when you say SAM deploy, we actually run a transform in CloudFormation. You've probably seen transform that take those special resources and expand them to what would lie underneath. So a Lambda function becomes an actual Lambda function, and it'll add the API gateway if that's your event source and those kinds of things. But where the real magic with SAM comes in is in the CLI. And so the CLI allows you to do local development. It handles all the container for you if you're doing container-based Lambda functions. It handles, there's a lot of setup that it takes care of for you. So there's a lot, it's built specifically for serverless. And that's one of the major differences between CDK and SAM. Not saying one's better or worse, but SAM is built for serverless. CDK is built for all the services. And it allows you to use code instead of, and we can get into a debate whether JSON and YAML are code, but basically it allows you to use TypeScript or Node or .NET or Python or Java to create CloudFormation. And that's an important thing to understand. Both of these IAC solutions eventually get to CloudFormation. They both generate CloudFormation. So there you go. Yeah, you're surrounded by Erics. That's true. I like the spelling. All right, so let's get back to creating the steering dock here, and let's get rid of my. I'm getting some notices here. There we go. All right, so the second thing is I don't want it to write custom scripts for deployment. Use built-in SAM commands, even custom make files. Did you know SAM can use custom make files? It's very cool, very powerful. That. Yeah, so if you want
I need to get on the SAM train.
You do. Yeah, for serverless, in my opinion, while I love both, I'm very good friends with Elad, who actually created the CDK. I love both, but I'm just for serverless. I am a SAM guy. I mean, so much so that, come on, I have the squirrel costume hanging in my closet, and my wife hates that. So, all right, so let's move on here. So I'm going to do that. So use AWS SAM for everything. Do not write custom scripts. The next thing I want is treat each Lambda function independently. Okay, and so this is where I kind of have a hard time explaining what I want. Wow, independently. Wow, that's bad.
Close enough.
And yeah, well, and it'll figure out what I mean. But there we go. We'll go independently. We'll leave that and see if it knows. Okay, each hang on a sec, function should be in an isolated folder under a source folder. So the way I like mine set up is I like the root, then I like a source folder, and then I may say something like, yeah, separation of concerns, very good call, where I may say, I don't know, API Lambda or reporting Lambda or something like that in the source folders. And I want all dependencies should be in the folder as well. Okay. I don't do shared dependencies. That gets kind of complex when we're building. I don't even install dependencies. I let SAM do that. So when you actually run SAM build, it actually in a temporary folder builds and grabs all the dependencies and then it caches them for the next time. So it doesn't muddy up your project file or your project folder. So all I have is a requirements.txt or a package.json. So very handy. And that's great for when you're building layers as well. All right. Should be in the folder as in the dependency manifest. That's pretty big there. All right, so let's start there. Okay, so what Kiro's going to do is it's going to say, okay, first thing it always asks me, now Eric, why does it ask me this? This is the senior working on a task that's optimized for spec session. Would you like to start a dedicated spec session?
Yeah, it's just it kind of infers from what you're asking that this might be good for a spec instead of a vibe. Were you on the vibe tab or spec tab?
I was on the vibe.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's why it's asking that.
Okay. So, and that's an important thing. So when we write specs, my advice, and I'll get your take on this, Eric, is always write the steering docs first. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea to jump into the steering docs. You can also, if you're in an existing project and you bring it up, I like to go in as add some information to the README file if it's not already in there. And then there's actually a generate steering docs button inside Kiro. And you can even press that button to have it automatically create it for you. But I like the way you're doing it and having it, telling it to do it as well.
Right, kind of a discussion. Okay, so here's the results of what we've got. It says always use SAM. It's got that in bold. It's just a markdown file. And it's told it's using the front matter. Is that what that's called? Front matter?
Yep.
And it says, I didn't even let you answer. Is that what that's called?
Yes.
Okay, nice. I'm very technical, Eric. I'm very technical. So this is the front matter. And it's always, because you can actually dynamically load stuff. Excuse me. So that says, okay, infrastructure as code. So it makes some things. And it tells it, avoid custom make files for deployment. So it probably misunderstood me a little bit on that. I don't mind custom make files as long as it's in the SAM. So I'm going to delete that just so we have it. Lambda organization, each function. So it's done. See here, it's got function one. And package.json node modules. I don't mind that it says node modules here because I actually won't have any because I won't install them like I was saying earlier. But it's given an example. And then it also says build the same config.toml file. And I love that. For dependency management, it's saying how to do it. And best practices, keep functions small. I didn't even tell it to do that, so it threw it in there. All right, so this is a pretty good start. But here's something that I have found a lot. Let me save this before it tries to work on it. Do you do step functions a lot, Eric?
From talking to you a lot, I've been playing around with them more. They're fun. I'm not an expert like you on them, though.
Okay. I'm a huge step functions fan, and I love JSONata in step functions. And one of the things is I found not just Kiro, that all the models, they struggle a little bit with the syntax, because the syntax of JSONata in step functions looks different than just normal JSONata. You have to wrap it in some things, and it changes from from JSON path to JSONata. You also use different arguments and things like that. So I like to give Kiro advice on how to use that. So let me show you what I do on that. So I will literally say, let's say, when using step functions, always use JSONata. And I'm going to say at the state machine level. And I'm actually going to say declared at the state machine level. And the reason for that is you can, with JSONata, you can declare it at the state level, because you can have one JSON path and one JSONata, and you can change it now. I don't want to do that. I like to do it at the state machine level. It's just my picky way. So we'll say, let me hang on a second here, declared at the state machine level. Now, I also wanted to understand the syntax, because this is, again, where it really gets hung up on. This has saved me a ton of things. So I'm going to say for syntax and patterns, here's a trick that I love. Watch this. For patterns, C, and for variables, I'm going to say, let me actually grab the link. So love that face. Look at that. It's my proudest moment right there. My wife, every time she sees this, says, that's why I married him. All right, so this is the variables one. So I'm going to say, grab the information from, I'm going to do a URL. And Eric, I'd be okay if you said there's a better way of doing this. This is how I do it. Okay, and then for JSONata, then I want you to grab information from this one. Okay.
Oh, great.
Okay, and so what it's going to do, this is where it gets really interesting, is it's going to take a look at these. So let's go ahead and let it work, and then I'll explain why it's doing it. So it's going to take a look at those URLs and say, okay, what does that syntax look like? What are we driving at here? Let me get my, just a minute here, and get my, there it goes. Okay, I was making sure my internet wasn't, I'm all paranoid about my internet now. So, but here we go. All right, so it's going to say, okay, we want to look at that. And so if you see here, well, it's actually already inserting things. So let's just go through and see what we've got here. So it's always use JSONata, set the query language JSONata. So let's learn how to do that. Okay, and now I'm going to add.
You can also press that little diff button too, if you wanted to.
Which one?
The little diff button in the accepted edits, the serverless standards.md. If you scroll up, yeah. View all right there, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay, view all. Okay. Oh, I see what it did. Okay, very cool. Okay. Now, however, I wanted to say add example patterns from those URLs.
There's a couple of questions in chat maybe you can answer.
Okay.
I see one from Iriad. It's, if you use the Kiro steering docs, does it default to the CDK, or does it determine that when you begin to spec out the app's requirements? It doesn't default to the CDK necessarily. It depends on what you ask. Obviously, what we're doing here makes more sense. We're kind of creating the steering docs beforehand that say we'll always use SAM, and it should default to SAM. I suppose if you had no steering docs and it's a brand new app, it would try to determine, and you said add XYZ, it'll try to determine what either create SAML, or might even tell you just use the CLI. So no, it doesn't necessarily always default to CDK.
Right. And that's it. So it's kind of like saying, hey, build me a front end, and sometimes it'll use Vue, and sometimes it'll use React and stuff. So I really kind of, what model are you using? How does the model go for that? So there isn't a default to that. So yeah, I agree with what Eric was saying. We did have a question. I'm going to grab these URLs real quick that I was doing. I'll just shoot you the transforming one, and I'll drop it in the chat, because this is a super helpful one. I also made, as you can see, my big stupid faces on there. I made a basically I did the video on how to do that as well. So Jeff, I'm gonna post this in our chat, and can you post that out to them? There we go. All right. Jeff, again, is our amazing producer. He's going to do that. So, all right. So what other questions do we have, Eric? Anything else I'm missing?
Can we add MCP servers to Kiro, like AWS documentation MCP server? I think we answered that. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. Right here, if I click on my favorite ghost here, here's my MCP servers here. I can pop that open and edit the JSON here.
And by the way, we just added in remote MCP server support and dynamic client registration, so you can even work it even better. And by the way, the steering docs, we also added a new function, so you can do global steering documents and local workspace and global.
Perfect. All right. So let's go back, and Eric, keep me honest. There's more questions come in. I'm glad to pause on that. But I really want to show this because this is super important, okay? Now we've got an example of how to use this. It knows to use the arguments. It knows the syntax. So it grabbed the syntax from there. And as silly as it sounds, this helps a lot. And like I said, I live in step functions. I do a lot of step functions. And so I can actually tell it, build me an ASL file that's going to do this, this, and this. And it gets really good results by putting this in there. All right, we have another question here. Since there's a steering, did you already answer this one, Eric?
No, I have not. Hey, Gusto, he's a mod in Discord and a few other places. Good to see you. So since, I believe it's the same Gusto, since there's a steering file dedicated panel in Kiro sidebar, are the plans for allowing users to set which steering files get included directly from the panel via checkboxes? This would speed up work with steering files a lot. So yeah, right now when you create, if you create a manual file, you have to create it in a certain folder to have it be added as a steering doc, or you have to click the little plus arrow inside Kiro to add it. We are looking at different ways of adding steering files that makes more sense in the future, but I don't have any details about that right now.
Okay.
But that's good. That's a good comment. Yep.
Alpha Code says SFN first, SFN always. Ben Smith, yes, that is true. Ben would be so proud of me. Eric Johnson also says step functions first. I'm a big fan. And here's the information, right? And so you can see in my doc here that, and there's probably too much. I might pull some of this out now, but it's given me some examples. But there's one thing that sometimes the agents get confused with, and so I'll just throw this in. I'll say, remember, a variable cannot be declared and used in the same state. As silly as that sounds, sometimes because we think, oh, I've declared a variable and therefore it's available in my arguments, it's not. In step functions, there's a scope there, and when I declare a variable, it's not available until the next state. And I can watch that video and I explain all the whys and stuff on that. But I'm going to make sure that Kiro remembers this, and I love this because he'll say, "Oh, you're absolutely right," which I always feel so good about myself when I'm done working with Kiro because I'm absolutely right so many times. It just makes me feel
I've seen T-shirts that say that. You're absolutely right.
I'm going to get one of those. I love that. So that's just critical rule about variable declaration and usage. So, okay. So that's kind of giving me some JSONata stuff that's super important. The last thing I'm going to throw in here, because here's a fun thing. Eric, did I tell you that I used Kiro to spec out my PowerPoint presentations for reInvent?
That sounds so cool. I want to know how you did that. I have to leave here in a few minutes, but you got to tell me where that.
Yeah, so we'll catch up on that, but that's kind of next level stuff. But what I was able to do is I had to build. So I'm doing a step functions presentation. It's advanced patterns. It's going to talk about how do you save money, how do you move faster, how do how does JSONata remove states, and how does distributed workflows work, and all those kinds of things. But I kept telling it to price it out, and it didn't remember that the start and the end are included as well. So if I have a start, 2 states, and an end, that's 4 transitions. And so the pricing, it was kind of, but once I explained that, and I could say, hey, remember that the start and the end and the loops and the things like that, Then it was able to know the pricing, and it was able to price out step functions for me. And it would keep slides. Basically, I just said for every slide in the spec file, I want you to generate the key points. I want you to generate a talk track. I want you to generate some prompts for images, and I want you to generate a updated price, and it would do that, and it was absolutely crazy. So, okay, so let's get back to, and we'll actually do some spec in a little bit, but I want to get back to this really quick. Anything I'm missing that you would throw in here?
No, that looks good, but I do have to go. It was so good talking to you, Eric. I can't wait to see what you can create here. And
all right, buddy.
Talking to you guys, chat.
Okay, we'll see you later.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so now you are just stuck with me. I apologize right up front. That's not cool. But I've been watching the questions. Yeah, Eric is super helpful and the expert here. All right, so let's look through our steering dock real quick. Like I said, there's a lot of things I would add. I talked about how I want things approached. Oh, I know another thing. For me, always use Python 3.13 in Lambda functions. Okay, so we'll add that. And that'll add it in there. Okay, so you get the idea. I've had this conversation with Kiro to create a spec file. So let's walk through this, I'm sorry, not a spec file, the steering dock. So let's walk through the steering dock and kind of see what it's done, all right? So we have our infrastructure as code. We've got our Lambda function organization, how I want it, even gives an example of where things should go. Dependency management, how that should work. Step function standards, here's the things that I've asked it to do, JSONata, different things like this. Oh, yes, that's a good one. Always, good job, schizophrenic web developer. This is one that I do. I say always use ARM. Okay, so and it'll set that. Oh, and here's a couple things else I'll do. So in SAM, there's two things that are really important to me. All right, the first is always use globals when possible. And actually, I'll start that and then we'll do this one, okay? For permissions, because SAM's going to handle a lot of your permissions, you're going to create policies. I wanted to say go in this priority. For me, now you may like it differently. This is how I like it. First, one, use SAM policies. So that if you're not familiar with this, it's the SAM policies that you can just attach to a Lambda function or attach to a state machine, and it'll actually create the least privilege policies that you want. And that's I did a whole show on it. If you look up sessions with SAM policies, you can see that it's years old, but it still works. So two, then used AWS managed policies. This is the order I like it. And three, finally, use inline policies, right? And so inline policies means it'll just put it right there on the Lambda function. And then when that transform happens, it'll build out the actual policy that you want. So I'll have it do that. And then let's look and see what it does to our steering dock here. Okay, so, and for the ARM, yep, here it is. Always use ARM64 architecture for Lambda functions. Good. All righty. All right, now it's added the globals. It tells it how it wants to do globals, so that's good. Variables, different things like that. Okay, so we've got the steering dock pretty much how we want, but if you take a look at this, this is 313 lines of steering dock, right? So Mirror Science, and we have this Alpha Codes ask the question, do we need to worry about cores? The answer to that is always we have to worry about cores, right? So yeah, when we build these applications out, yes, of course we'll need to worry about cores, and we can do that at API gateway or however you want to do that. But that is a definite answer. It's always cores. It's always in DNS. That's right. In a video years ago, I have a video created or that I did in 2019 called "I Didn't Know API Gateway Did That," and I literally made the statement: if cores had a face, I'd punch it in the nose. nobody loves cores. So if you're not familiar, years ago I created a thing, and Jeff, I'm going to add another website here for you. It's cores.serverlessland.com, and I'll show that in a minute. But that's a cores configurator for SAM. You tell it what you want, and it actually creates all the SAM for you. Okay, so we've got some other things coming in. Good. All right, so let me jump up here. All right. So, Mira, please, where can we find this video? So it'll be on YouTube, and I'm going to ask Jeff to also post that one as well. So, Jeff, if you can post the YouTube channel, so we can get that's where the video will be. It'll also be on Twitch, so both of them will be available. So, all right. Okay, so let me go back to this real quick here and make sure everything else is good to go. So like I said, we have 313 lines of a steering doc. Now that's great, but there are some things in here. It's like, well, follow the principles of least privileges for IAM roles. Yeah, there's some good stuff here. But thanks, Jeff. Do we really need everything in here? Okay, so let's tell Kiro this, all right? So, okay, this is great. However, and this is how I talk to Kira all the time. I'm very interactive, stuff like that. So, however, remember, oops, put a comma in there. Remember that this is how you doing? Steering doc and tokens count. We need to keep this as concise as possible. Okay. Just the facts, not the reasons. Okay. Now, this one isn't as bad, but I've seen some at the end. They're like, here's why we're doing this, because blah, 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 right? So we just want the facts. We just want directives. We don't need the explanations for it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. And then if we watch this for a second, you're going to see the line numbers. One, you're absolutely right. So it's going to read that, and it's going to figure out maybe we don't need as much. And then I can also have it to, in fact, I'll tell it here in a minute, to remove redundant examples, because there's a lot of examples. Oh, we're down to 254 now. Okay. Best practices. You can see it's made it much smaller. I still have a lot of step functions examples, so we could probably lose some of that. But in these steering docs, it's really important that you want these to be as small as possible, right? Cores, yes. Cores is, yeah. Yeah. All righty. We've got to, yep, there's some other stuff on Alper Codes. Alper Codes watches this a lot. I've met him in person. He's a really good developer, knows his stuff. So if he's throwing something in here, it's probably worth looking at. So, okay. So I've significantly condensed it. So we've gone from 313 down to 74 lines in our code. So you see how it's reduced the examples. And so it's given me, here's how you store the inputs, here's how you use a variable, here's how you do choice with it, here's output, different things like that. So now I've got a much more concise version of my steering doc. Now, one of the things, this is my kind of my development approach. I can also build things for if I wanted to give it some, like, here's how I like my design colors if we were going to design a front end. And so I could start another doc. Now there's been some back and forth. I actually asked Eric this before we got on. There's been some back and forth. I've heard some people say, hey, it's better to have a single steering doc rather than multiple steering docs. And I'd love to hear what you all have to say. Eric is telling me he hasn't really heard that. So be, schizophrenic web developer, I'm wondering if you have anything on this, or some of the folks watching, Derek Gusto. I'd be interested to see what you all have to say on that, whether one or not. I usually will have 3 or 4 steering docs, and I'm kind of lazy. I tend to always load them. So I'm probably getting a little wasteful with my tokens and things like that. So you might want to do some work on how do you bring that down to just, again, the most concise and that. So, okay. I'm going to look here, see if we have any more questions. And real quick, I thought it'd be kind of fun, totally off topic, but as we talk about cores, let me go here real quick here, cores. Okay, this probably needs some updating, but I built this years ago when I got mad at cores. And literally what you can do is you can just say, so I have a website called singledigit.net. It's not up right now, so if you go to it, you're not going to see anything but single digit. Get it? So I can say, okay, what methods I want to be able to get, put, post, and options. Right. And then I can say, yeah, I'm going to have an authorizer. What's the token source authorize? And maybe I'll have an API key. We'll go X, I don't know, get key, something like that. Okay. So what's kind of cool is nothing has happened. Let's go to HTTP. Oh, I know why. Oh, yeah, I should probably have an error on that. Okay. So then it generates, if you want to add it to the global section, you just grab this code. If you want to add it to the REST API source, you just grab this code. If you're using HTTP API, you use this, and it actually looks a little different. It gives you some cautions and how to do the responses and things like that. So, okay. Someone just said still looking at Kiro. Great that you pointed it out. Let me. I thought I had shared that. Let me share this out real quick. Good call. Thanks for pointing that out. This is my first time streaming ever, so I'm just kidding. That's a big lie. All right, let's start the stream again, and we'll just do the share screen. Okay, window, and here it is. Okay, got it. Boom, there you go. So here's where you fill in the domain, you tell the methods that you want over here, and you tell if you want an authorizer, what is the name of the authorized key, and maybe any custom headers, and then it generates the actual SAM code for you and gives you some hints. So, all right, there you go. All right, so let me go back and see if we've got some questions here. Learning so much. Good. Okay. I've created 2 apps in Kiro without steering docs. Hopefully, yeah. Steering docs are big. You're going to want that. So multiple steering docs is the way for me. Combined with automatic or manual inclusion. Yep, very good. One document means always use all our steering content. That's lots of tokens wasted. That's correct. So great feedback on that. So Alper Codes helped me out by telling me that, come on, Eric, pull it together. All right. And the longer context, the lower it's understanding. That's correct. So good thing there's some great comments from Derek. So it's really important to understand that the shorter context, keep that small. That's one of the reasons why I'm assuming why when you do Kiro and you go through the tasks and you create it, when you do specs and tasks, each time it creates a new task, and I'll show that in a minute, it actually creates a new session. So it keeps those small. If you want to level up your Kiro skills, remember to install Kiro-Chan extension. I don't know that one, Derek. If you have a link, that would be great. I'm assuming it's in the plugins. Let's look here real quick. Chan. There it is. Right there. Okay. So this is okay. VS Code extension displays an animated Kiro character in the status bar. Excellent features. React. Okay. Apparently this is super helpful. So, okay. All righty. Thank you very much for that information. Okay. So let's take a moment. And now that we've built out this spec, we can add more and more, but we have 10 minutes. So let's take a moment. I'm sorry, we built out the steering doc. Terminology matters. Let's go ahead and build a spec. Now, I did this in a show earlier, but I've had a lot of people ask me, how did you approach building a PowerPoint, right? So before we do that, let's actually, we can do it in the spec. So this is where I'm kind of deciding if I want to do spec or vibe, but let's do this. Okay, I always use Power Tools and Lambda and use the layer arms hosted by, those are good things also to add as well. Power Tools is the big one. Okay. So I want to build a presentation for reInvent. I want you to help me with this. Okay, so I had to tell this before because Kiro kept thinking we were building a application to generate a presentation. Okay, so I'm going to tell we are going to do this collaboratively. Okay, close enough. Oh, I got it. Okay, you create content, I'll move to PowerPoint. Okay, something like that. All right, so then I gave it some instructions. Each slide should have its own folder. In the folder, put content and any code examples. Okay, all right. Content, this is what I told it. I want key points, talk track, image recommendations, and finally prompts for Firefly. I use Firefly at Adobe. It's one of our approved ones. We can do that. So Firefly is an image generation. All right, so I'm gonna have it do that. So create a story to help talk about step functions improvements from, I'm going to say, Lambda spaghetti to orchestration magic. Make it fun. Okay, that's enough for now. Okay, so I'm going to tell it this is how I want to spec it out. All right. Oh, look at that. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I was just paranoid. Okay, we got any other questions going on here? Okay, good. All right, so while this is thinking, what it does, it's going to do several things. Okay, it's going to first off create, make sure I get this right, a requirements doc. These are our stories, right? Hey, as a presentee or as an attendee, I want this and then that. So let's see what we've got. So it looks like it's already done it. So here's my requirements doc. I'm going to tell it to move to design phase so we can get started. Okay. So in my design here, we can see that it's done a couple things. It's given me a glossary. Hey, are we talking about the same things? All right, as a reinvent presenter, I want a compelling narrative structure so that I can effectively communicate the evolution of step functions to my audience. Okay, system shall include a clear story arc from problem, Lambda spaghetti to solution orchestration magic. Beautiful. Okay, requirement 2. And so you can see it goes through there, and there you go. So now we have, then it creates the design doc. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell it to move to the implementation plan. It'll do that in the background while we look at the design doc. All right, this presentation tells a transformative story from service architecture through fun, engaging. Okay. Oh, we'll take the audience on a journey from the dark ages of the Lambda spaghetti code to the enlightened era of step functions orchestration using humor, relatable analogies, and concrete technical examples. Okay, the problem, the spaghetti hell. Seeking better orchestration, step functions magic. Oh, hey, you might see this at reInvent. All right, so while this is looking at this, do you usually do a full review of requirements.mdb format? Yes, I absolutely do. I look at it and we'll change things. Now, you can go back and change it and move forward, but I do the review so that it's doing what I want, and then I'll change that out. Okay. Good question. Very good question. All right. So here it is. It's broken out the slides, what it's going to look like. So let's go ahead and now it's going to ask me, do I want to keep optional? I want to make all tasks requirements, all tasks required. But yeah, the only reason I'm going this fast is just because we're streaming and I only have 6 minutes left. But yes, I do a full review of the requirements of the design and the tasks, especially when I'm building an application. So again, great question. All right, so let's jump into the tasks. All right. So first thing we're going to do, this is only 10 slides. So that's kind of nice. So usually it's going to be about 70 to 80, but this will be good. So let's go ahead and start this. And what it's going to do is it's going to create the presentation structure and title slide. We're going to set up folder for all 10 slides, create compelling title slide with a hook, establish visual theme and branding elements. Okay, so under the presentation, you're going to see here's slide 1. Okay, and here's the content already. So you've got a title from Spaghetti Lambda to Orchestration Magic. How step functions plus JSONata transform serverless chaos into elegant workflows. Here's your subtitle. Okay, and you get the idea. And here's your hook elements. Here's your visual elements. Okay. So now if I look under here, that's slide 1. Slide 2. Here's my content. Okay. Now, one thing here is I don't have, let's see what slide 2 gives me. Let's go back to 1 since it's generating. Okay, so I don't have much of a talk track. So once this finishes, I can actually have it go in and say, hey, go ahead. Actually, it does. It's using the hook elements. Raise your hand if you ever built Lambda Spaghetti. Promise of transformation. Okay, this is great. And this is how, so this isn't the same story, but this is how I approach building. If you come to my presentation at reInvent, the advanced patterns and step functions, API 313, shameless plug right there. This is what I did. I walked through it. And the cool thing is it kept track of the story and the pricing and everything. So I was able to move that around. So let's look at some of these other ones here. Okay, so let's go step functions, capability overview. Okay, that's like, let's go here. Okay, slide 7. All right, let me create the master index file for the presentation. It's doing that. We've got a little bit of time here yet, so we're gonna do one other thing while that's doing that. Okay, so it's updating the stat. Okay, so now it's going through and it's setting all that complete. Okay, so that was just the first one. It just went through and made simple stories. Okay, and it created all the slides. So now task 2 is build the Lambda Spaghetti problem demonstration. Okay. So it's going to actually create humorous analogies. It's going to do all that. So we'll let that roll through there. Okay, so while that's doing that, the other thing I can do, what's kind of cool, is I can go in here and say, okay, create an ASL file, and it's actually going to create. Pause for. Oh, sorry. A pause for applause. Thank you, Opera Codes. I appreciate that. I can actually go in here and say, create the ASL file, and I'll actually do that. I'm going to cancel this for a moment. And we're going to say for slide, we'll just pick 7, create an ASL.json file with an example workflow. Now, remember, I've told it how to do it. It should be doing this using JSONata and that kind of thing. Okay, so let's see what it does here. So that was in 7. Okay. Oh, come. So I would probably add this. The standard for naming would be the name of the file .asl.json, and that helps a lot. So let's say should be .asl.json. So let's have it change that. So it aborted that. Now it's going to go ahead and rename that or restart. And then if we come in here, so I have the plugin that says, hey, if it's .asl.json, it's going to open it up in the step functions workflow studio, which is right inside there, and I can add it and edit. So as it creates things, you'll see them start popping in, which you do now. So there's our spaghetti craziness, showing all the things going on using a Lambda function. Now I can actually go in here and say, okay, let's here, let me get I've got this so big we can't see anything. I can export this as a PNG, and now I have the image for my slide, and we're good to go. Okay, that was a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for the moment. Hopefully I don't see any more questions coming in. I hope you enjoyed this. This is kind of a fast pace. Let me throw a lot of things at how you do this. But we have a lot of fun building things, and these are tools that help us do it fast. I hope the steering docs make more sense to you. I hope you see the power of a spec, not just in building applications, but doing anything. You can do specs in so many different things. Bevan, don't worry. This is recorded. Feel free to go back and record it or watch the recording. It's going to be on YouTube, which is early in the channels, or on, of course, it's on Twitch. And with that, Jeffrey, I got to sign off. I'm turning it back to you. See you next week. Same time, same place. Lots of good information. See you later.